Hello, and thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's most badass digital agency owners. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name is Chris Martinez, CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so they can take on more website and funnel projects and scale profitably. Today, I am joined by a brother from another mother, Carlos Gil, CEO and founder of Gil Media. What is up, Carlos?
What is
¿Cómo
happening,
estás?
Chris? Muy bien, ¿y tú?
Bien, bien, gracias. So, you're obviously, you're a Spanish speaker. I am learning Spanish still. I should know Spanish by now, but you're a native Spanish speaker?
I am. Spanish is actually my first language. I
Crazy.
learned English right around like 5 years old when I went to kindergarten.
Awesome, man. Well, I mean, we'll get into your heritage and your story and stuff, but your family's from Cuba, right?
My family, yeah, my parents were born and raised in Cuba. All my ancestors, I'm a first generation Cuban American.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's very, very exciting for me to see another fellow Latino who's just, crushing it, getting on the big stages, making an impact. But we start off every podcast with what we call like our roundtable discussion. And this is something that I can identify with, is that you dropped out of high school and you actually ended up getting a GED, which is surprising to a lot of people because, there are a decent amount of people in the internet marketing space that didn't go to college, but I don't know too many who didn't even finish high school. So why don't you give us the story on that and like what happened?
So it's ironic because I feel really comfortable now talking about something that for like most of my life, adult life at least, I felt very uncomfortable speaking about, and that
Right.
was the fact that I didn't finish high school. And I think part of it is as you get older, you feel more comfortable in your own skin. And I think doing things like writing a book and some of the different professional accolades that I've achieved have instilled confidence in me that really outweighs the lack of education, formal education, if you will, because when you learn how to grow a business and you're in the trenches and you're understanding marketing and you kind of become self-made and self-taught, you are learning. So I don't want to discredit all the work that goes into learning the art of the trade of running a business. But at the same time, it's much different when you have to like scratch and claw your way through building a career and starting a business when you don't have that formal expertise or education. But it's very simple, Chris. I grew up as an only child. Both my parents are Cuban immigrants who have become very successful serial entrepreneurs. And throughout my adolescence, throughout my youthhood, we moved around a lot. So we moved to Bozeman, Montana. I did my freshman year of high school in Bozeman. Then we moved to Salt Lake City. And I went to 2 different high schools in Salt Lake, both my sophomore and junior year. So right around the period between junior year and senior year, we moved back to South Florida, which is where I'm from. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, right outside Miami. And I always enjoyed working. I always enjoyed making money. I used to work in one of my dad's restaurants when I was younger. And then when I was in high school, I split time between working at Blockbuster Video and I sold shoes for one of the subsidiaries of Journeys. So long story short, I always enjoyed making money. And between that period of junior year and senior year, I just made a decision and I told my parents I'm going to drop out of high school and get a GED. I was going to be turning 18 anyways at the end of the summer. So it was kind of like I just played that move, almost like playing poker. I just played that move and let my parents know school's not for me. Not that I'm a bad student, not that I hate school, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted to be an adult already. I wanted to be out there in the real world and make my own money. So I dropped out and got my GED. And my first job as an adult was selling shoes. I was making $5.50 an hour.
Nice.
And I had to, really nice. I was balling.
Yeah.
Making $5.50 an hour, which is minimum wage in 2001. And I had to sell $1,000 worth of product per day to make a $50 commission. So after a few months of working 7 days a week at a shoe store at the mall, one day it dawned on me like, man, this really sucks being a high school dropout. Like it really, really dawned on me. And that was a point, very early on in my life where I realized I needed to do something. And selling shoes wasn't going to be it. So I went to go work in banking and finance and worked in banks for about 6 years. I was really fortunate to catch on with Citigroup and work in and get accepted into their management trainee program. And I very quickly discovered working in corporate America that you'd only go as high as your superiors would allow you to go. I made decent money at a young age, bought houses and cars at a young age. Life was good, but I also knew there was something else out there for me. And when I lost my job in the banking industry in 2008, I knew that would be probably the moment in my life that my calling was to become an entrepreneur and start up a business. And I did. I started up a online job board at 25, and it was called Jobs Direct USA. And in full transparency to you and your viewers, I knew nothing about running a business. I faked it until I made it. Eventually I did make it, and here I am today. But it was a learning experience, man. And since then I've been really fortunate that I was, able to work for some cool companies as an employee, LinkedIn being one of them, running social media marketing for them. And today, besides running an agency, I've got a book, I'm a speaker, and I love the fact that in the year 2020, I don't have to work as hard and hustle as hard as I did in the years of 2008, 9, 11, and 10 when no one knew who the hell I was. And quite frankly, no one wanted to have me on their podcast.
Well, now we want you on the podcast. That person that you were back then, yeah, no, we didn't care about that. No, just kidding. So let's go back to the GED thing, because I have a question for you. Like my mother immigrated from Taiwan. My grandfather immigrated from Mexico. My father was the first generation Mexican American. And so growing up, like education was really, really important. And I have found that for a lot of immigrant children, education is seen from the parent standpoint as the means to a better life. And your parents sacrifice a lot to try and give you opportunities to get a formal education, which, as entrepreneurs, there's a lot of things that you kind of have to unlearn after you go through that system. But did your parents just like go nuts when you decided that you were going to drop out of school, or were they supportive of that?
No, they weren't supportive at all.
I can imagine. I'm just picturing your mother like throwing a shoe at you.
On the contrary, like my dad's a U.S. Army vet. He's very proud of the fact that he served in the Army. Very proud American, even though he was born in Cuba.
Yeah.
But my parents are both educated. My parents are also highly successful entrepreneurs. And, I think that was one of those things that when I came to them at a young age and made that decision, leading up to it, I wasn't an A student. I wasn't always getting the good grades. I got into a lot of trouble as a kid. I skipped a lot of school. So I think in some ways it might have been more of a relief for them, but in others, a disappointment. But I'll be honest with you, my parents were always, they always kept it 100 with me. And they always told me, this is a decision that you're making. We don't like it, but we can't stop it. Yeah. And don't ask us for a penny, when times get tough. And, within the year of me dropping out of high school, I also got married. I got married really young. And that was another one of those kind of experiences in my life where my mom and dad were like, hey, you got to put on your big boy pants now and go be an adult, go grow up. Don't ask us for a dime when things get tough. And that's one of those things I've always taken pride that, no matter what ups and downs life has handed me, I've never had to go back to my parents and ask them for a dime. But what I do want to say to this audience, because I probably think this is like one of the first interviews I ever really go this in depth about being a high school dropout. Being a high school dropout is not glorious. And I think it's glorified in today's culture and society, because you hear so many successful entrepreneurs that either dropped out of high school or dropped out of college. Like, I don't know too many that dropped out of high school, but like Zuckerberg comes to mind immediately for dropping out of college. I believe like Bill Gates dropped out of college too. Those are unicorns, right? We're not all designed as unicorns. And I've got 5 kids of my own, and 2 of them, are old enough now to kind of comprehend, about life. My oldest son's 14, my daughter's 12, and I would never advocate for them to drop out of high school, no matter how advanced technology is nowadays. Like, right. I know for a fact that my kids could go on YouTube and right now probably learn more than what they're learning in middle school or in high school.
Yeah.
Like my son, for example, wants to work in journalism, and he can go right now on YouTube and learn right? Probably how to edit video. He can learn about broadcasting and do all these things. But I think what school really gives you is it gives you structure and also provides you with a network. And ironically, I ended up going to school when I turned 30. For the first time, I went actually to a university.
Nice.
And it was by necessity because I was working in corporate marketing already. And I kept interviewing for all these jobs, even though I already had experience as an entrepreneur and as a corporate marketer. Every job that I would interview for that was above my pay grade, I was turned down for because I didn't have a bachelor's and I didn't have an MBA. So I was fortunate enough to get into this executive MBA program at Jacksonville University in Florida. And that's really where I started learning about the value of like the network that having a university degree provides you.
Yeah, totally, man. One thing that, because I've looked at that as well, the dropping out thing. It's like everybody, and
Did you drop
it,
out as well?
no. So like I was a hoodlum when I was a kid, man. Like my best friend was doing drive-bys at 14. Like,
Oh, shit.
yeah, he ended up dying. Like he got shot and killed after high school.
Damn.
But I played sports. So when I got to high school, soccer was like my life, and that kind of took over. And that's what helped me go down a better path. But I easily, like I saw the way that things can go bad. And it's like one little decision, or like if your support network at home is not there, like your chances of being a productive human are very, very low. And I easily could have gone down that wrong path. It was literally like there was one day and we were smoking weed at school, and I was the only one. Me and my other friend Jimmy were the only ones who didn't get kicked out, and everybody else got kicked out and they just disappeared. Like who knows where they are? One of them dead. So but yeah, so when it comes to the whole dropping out thing, like when people go to Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, what is not talked about, that should be 100% like the leading part of this conversation, is they got into Harvard. Like, yes, they dropped out, but they were smart enough to get in. So like getting into a school like Stanford and Harvard, or that alone is a huge accomplishment. Like, so like, don't forget that aspect, when you're glorifying, or when you hear people glorifying to try and sell their, get rich quick scheme, just drop out. You don't need school, buy my course, Yeah. Like, these people are intelligent people to begin with, and they had good, I would say, foundations for learning and achievement, that maybe, they got some aspects from school and stuff like that. But yeah, like getting
like I said, I think it's such a destructive message nowadays, to your point, to tell youngsters that they should drop out of school and that all you need to do is create a Shopify store and create the right product and the right brand, and next thing you know, you're gonna be a multimillionaire, because that's not realistic. And
right.
I mentor a lot of youth nowadays, and I always tell them, look, you have 3 different paths that you can go down. First of all, there's this like entrepreneur hustle culture that we all are kind of seeing, right? Where you're led to believe that if you're not private jet flying, Ferrari riding, styling and profiling, and verifying Instagram, you're an absolute failure. And that's not realistic. It really isn't. In the real world, as you know, Chris, relationships are paramount. Who you know really matters, but relationships really, really are paramount.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a sense of being able to help people thrive in their business. You have to have education. You have to be known for something. Okay. And it's so unrealistic for someone who's 17, 18, 19 to just become this overnight millionaire. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's unrealistic. So I tell those youth I mentor, you can go down one of these 3 paths. 1, go work for someone at a young age, like I did, and you're going to get paid to learn. There's nothing wrong with working for someone, okay? Because there's value in getting on the job training and getting paid for it. 2, you can go to school, and by going to school, you're going to buy yourself time, but you're also going to learn about building a network and making friends, and you're going to just learn about yourself, and then you're going to figure things out in that 4-year window. Or 3, go start up a business at a young age and fail, and then you're going to learn from failure. Well, in every one of those options I just presented, there's learning, and as long as you're always learning, then you're always one step ahead of your competition and your peers. And that kind of brings me to the notion that I never think of failure as a bad thing. Because for me, failure is a myth. I have come up short many times throughout my life, many times throughout my career. And even to this day, right? Like we're going through coronavirus right now, stay at home. Like there's a lot bad that's happening, but I just try to look at what I can learn from every situation and just keep moving forward. And that's something that takes a while to understand that concept. And I wish more young people would understand that concept as opposed to just thinking that life is as simple as having a presence on the internet and then the money's just going to flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, we could talk about this forever, but I do want to talk about Guild Media. So really quickly, give me the story of how you ended up going from working in the banking world to starting your media company.
So I started my media company in 2017.
Fairly recently.
Yeah, fairly recently. To give you a timeline, 2008, lose my job in the banking industry, start up an online job board. That online job board is really what forced me to learn social media marketing. This is during the recession era. Right around then, 2011, one of my clients, Winn-Dixie, approaches me and says, hey, we want to hire you to be our first ever head of social media marketing. For me, that was an opportunity to actually gain formal experience working in corporate marketing, understand how corporate marketing works. And to make a long story very short, I ended up working at 4 other companies as a head of social, including LinkedIn. LinkedIn relocated me to San Francisco. And after doing a very similar job 4 different times, I realized, you know what, the whole corporate gig, it's not for me. I would be far more successful as an entrepreneur working with multiple brands as opposed to one. And like, I think a lot of what I like to call intrapreneurs, so entrepreneurs that work within corporations, I started doing the whole side hustle thing, and companies were approaching me to consult, to advise. And in this time, I started speaking at conferences a lot. So between the period of, I'd say like 2014 to 2000, early 2017, man, I was taking as many speaking gigs as I could. I wasn't really turning down any opportunities that were coming my way. And I started realizing I could make more money working on my own than working for a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
And in that process of transitioning out of the salary and benefits, I also started building a team. And even, to take a step back before I go too far into the weeds, a lot of folks don't know how to start an agency of their own or a business of their own. So let's just kind of take the agency world for a second. There's a lot of digital marketing agencies. That there's a lot of social media marketing agencies. So what I did was I analyzed what are the things that personally I enjoy doing in my corporate gig that I'm really good at. And this is what I advise others to think about as well as they think about starting up their own agency. So I kind of came down to 3 kind of key core tasks, if you will. One of them is community management. At all the brands where I previously worked, I had a team that worked for me, and I worked with that team on providing great community management support to our customers. So that's a service that I knew when I go off on my own, I want that to be one of like the key pillars that Guild Media offers clients is community management, meaning like all the back end support. When your employees leave at the end of the day, we're the team that comes in, we do customer service, we do sales, we make sure that we're responding to your clients. So check. Awesome. The other kind of key pillar, if you will, is content marketing. So that's everything from capturing video content, editing video, helping clients with their podcasts, writing blogs. So I have a team of copywriters, video editors, content creators, if you will. So that's the other pillar. Check. The third pillar is kind of what I refer to as a strategy and consulting arm. So we work with brands on everything from activating their employee army, if you will, as advocates, to helping companies reset their whole social media strategy, to actually working with other agency partners on campaign launches and executions. So it's really 3 key pillars to my agency. We don't do Facebook ads. We don't do SEO. We don't build websites. And that's really by design for us to really focus on a few key tasks or pillars, as I call them. And what can I say, man? Business has been great, thank God. Right now we're seeing a little bit of a downturn because of the healthcare crisis.
Everybody is seeing a downturn.
I don't want to come here on your show and be like, yeah, it's business as usual, because it's not. We've lost a lot of business as a result of this. But what I do want to say to your audience of agency owners is think about how you can take your existing resources and still leverage them, even if the profile of your client has changed.
Yep.
So I'll give you an example. Historically, our clients have been enterprise brands. We invoice anywhere from high 5 figures to low 6 figures per client. That has gone away because right now enterprise companies are either canceling contracts or pausing contracts.
Yep.
So instead of just laying off my team of copywriters and community managers and content editors, we're now making our services available for anyone that wants to start up a podcast, anyone wants to start a YouTube channel. Granted, our ticket size or invoice size is much smaller by comparison, but we're actually seeing, because we have a higher volume of clients now coming in,
Yep.
that we're able to like really offset these costs. And for me as a business owner, what's most important is that we have enough revenue coming in to still be able to cover our expenses.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Maybe you feel like this, but this is how I feel based on my experiences growing up and throughout my whole life, is that this is like my whole life has been many, many pivot points. Like something happens and I got to pivot. And so this to me is just one other pivot point. I mean, it's definitely unprecedented, and I didn't really see that the whole world was going to be shut down the way that it was. But you know, what's happened to me because of the challenges that I've experienced in my life is that if I get knocked down, the time it takes for me to get back up and start fighting again is very, very small.
Same.
Like I'll sit and I'll cry about it for maybe like half of a second. I'm like, then I'm up. I'm like, let's go. Let's fucking do this. Right.
Yep.
And that's just how I think that my experiences have led me or have conditioned me to be like that. So what I'm hearing, like when you talk about your story, it's really, really cool that you're able to just flip it around. Like most people, if they lose a 6-figure client, they're going to like crumble. Right. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you were basically able to just be like, okay, no big deal. We're going to move in this new direction. And now you're able to, keep your staff employed, you're able to bring in new clients and new revenue, which is really, really cool. I mean, like, would you say that that's kind of like how you have gained that resiliency that a lot of people might not have?
Well, the way I see it is this, is like the last recession, 2008, 9, 10, that experience and that era of my life really conditioned me to think how you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Things don't go the right way. We lose a client. Things go sideways. It is what it is. It's not really within my control. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And you have to keep moving forward. You have a conscious decision to make. Either I sit here and lick my wounds and complain to the world about how shitty it is to lose, a 6-figure client, or I just got to keep moving forward and replace that revenue somehow. And, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I think that's just like how you're hardwired. In the worst of times, man, you just got to find a way to make things happen.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So I'm very impressed from what I see of you on social media. I mean, you're so involved. I can tell you invest a lot of time in it. I don't know, like, if you feel like you have naturally good charisma, but from what I see, man, I mean, like, you're doing very, very well, and you present yourself very well with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where did that come from, and how have you leveraged that to develop these relationships that are enabling you to, get on these stages, speak to people, podcasts, interviews, CNN, all these cool things that you've done? Like, how is that?
It's funny that you say that, Chris, because like naturally you might never know this, but I am actually really introverted.
Yeah.
And I'm an only child. So when I was growing up as a kid, I was always super shy, super, super shy. And I think that in order to be successful in the line of work that I'm in, public speaker, author, public figure, personality, that sort of deal, you have to be a people person. You have to like people. Like, if you're going to work in social media, especially, and have a personal brand, you have to like people. There's like no other way around it. And if you don't like people, you're in the wrong business. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of folks that they do, videography really well. I've met some great creatives. They're not people persons. And that's oftentimes why they're behind the camera creating, as opposed to being on the front of the camera as a talent.
Yeah.
So that's something that it takes time to kind of, build that muscle memory, if you will.
Yeah.
Every single day of my life for the last 12, almost 13 years, man, like the cell phone has become, almost like tied to me, tied to the hip, attached to the hip. So again, man, like charisma, I think those are things that just it comes out natural. You gotta like people, especially if you're gonna be a public speaker, man.
Yeah.
Especially if you're gonna be a public speaker.
Like if you could look back to when you started this journey, and doing a lot of speaking, and working with big media outlets, what are some of the big things that you did that paid off massively later on down the road?
Definitely has to be building a network on LinkedIn, building a social network. I would not sell you my social network right now, even if you made me an offer. I wouldn't, because like my social network is worth millions, man. It's priceless. I'd say that's been the best investment I've ever made.
Were you just like sliding into DMs like all the time, or what were like how do
Everything, man, everything. Spamming the hell out of people,
uh,
messaging everyone that you possibly can, blindly connecting with people. You'd be surprised, man. Like, and this is kind of like a growth hack, if you will. Every single time that whether it's Inc. or Forbes or Fortune publishes those lists of like, here are like our top 50 CMOs for the year, here's our top 50 CEOs for the year. You know what I've been doing, man, for well over a decade now? I connect with all those people on LinkedIn.
wow.
I send them invitation requests to connect. I just congratulate them for being named one of the top 50, CMOs, for 2016 or 17. And here's what happens with that, right? You connect with people, you keep going about your business. It's out of sight, out of mind. You keep publishing your good work into the world. And then when you least expect it, you'll be at a dinner, you'll be at a conference, you'll be at a networking event, and all of a sudden they know who you are. And that's happened to me countless times throughout my career where I'm at, a private function, right? Where, it's like a who's who in the room. And all of a sudden someone's like, oh, hey, you're Carlos Gil. I know who you are, right? And that in itself changes the whole aura, the whole dynamic about how other people look at you because that one person knows who you are.
Yeah.
And it's not that I did anything special. I just invited that person to connect.
Right.
By them connecting with me, now they've been seeing my progression and they've been opting in to see my content. And, it goes back to the good old saying, right? You never know who's in the room. You never know
Yep.
who's watching.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, but Michael Jordan used to say, his dad told him, always play your best because you never know who's seeing you play for the first time.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, I love that, dude. It's so cool that you that you told that story, because most people will start creating content and they give up like within, I would say, 6 months. I don't have stats on this, but I'm just going to say 90% of people stop creating content after 6 months because they don't see that direct ROI.
Right.
But that's the thing, is like, you don't know who's paying attention. You
Right.
don't know who sees. It could be, like of your dream 100, or if if you have that list or whatever, you could have 5 people who are on your dream 100 who are like, read an article or see a video that you did, and they're not going to raise their hand, but one day, this might come to fruition. So you just got to keep going. That's great.
100%.
Cool, man. Well, guess what? We're basically out of time. This went by so fast, and I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to take up more of your day. I really appreciate you going on. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Carlos?
You know what? The best way that you can get in touch with me is just through social media. So hit me up at CarlosGill83, either on Twitter or on Instagram.
And you have a new book that's come out recently,
I have
right?
a new book. I'm glad that you brought it up. It's called End of Marketing. You can go on Amazon, just look up End of Marketing, or you can go endofmarketingbook.com. And the book is really a social media Bible on all the things that you can do in order to grow your brand. And I guarantee you, even if you think you know it all with social media, there's probably going to be a couple of gems within End of Marketing that either reaffirms or that light bulb goes off like, aha, now I get it.
Awesome, man. Did you do the audiobook too? I feel like
I do the audiobook as well.
Is it on Audible?
It is an Audible. If you like
I'm gonna
listening,
get it.
if you like listening to this voice, then I invite you to listen to this voice for 6.5 hours.
Perfect. I'll put it on the loudspeakers in my house. Sweet, man. And who's the perfect person to reach out to you today?
the perfect person to reach out to me is anyone that wants to know how they can level up their social media game.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Everybody, you've been listening to Carlos Gil from Gil Media. Definitely connect with him, look him up. Great dude. To all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in today, and make sure that you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom.